Good morning, January 10th. The week had a pretty good week for grains. Corn up 8 cents, soybeans up 17, gaining a little over half of last week's losses back. Chicago Board of Trade wheat up 11, Minneapolis down 3 cents. So overall, not a bad performance for the grains. The livestock, though, had more mixed results. Live cattle down 262, feeder cattle up $1.75. Maybe some wavering there at those price levels. But look at these outside markets. Remember, last weekend on Saturday, the United States went and took the Venezuelan president and his wife out of Venezuela. And that destabilizing influence caused the precious metals to soar back near their highs. Gold up $171 for the week, silver up $8.32, over 10%, and knocking right back on the doors of new all-time historic highs. Crude oil up $1.80. The initial reaction was, of course, crude went down, but the last 2 days, Thursday and Friday trading this week, crude was up like $3.50, $4, so we ended up with gains for the week. The dollar up 0.732, of course, flexing the U.S.'s muscle around the world with our military power, of course, will result in a higher dollar. And the stock market, S&P up 105 points this week. That's a new all-time 6,000-year high uh, on the stock market indexes. The Dow went to a new high this week as well. So the stock market is soaring as the United States flexes its muscle around the world. Corn holding that uptrend. You can see the gains this week. Not a bad performance for corn, holding that uptrend. Got a USDA report on Monday. Probably update the yields for corn and soybeans. Soybean prices also found some stability here on that uptrend line and trading higher as well. So great buy here in the soybeans at this point at around that 1040 area. But the USDA update talk is that trade expectations, Reuters is saying that they're expecting the corn yield to drop 2 bushel. That might be a little aggressive. I don't think it's going to drop that much. And the expectations on soybean yields are it'll only drop 0.3 bushel. I think it could drop a lot more than that, maybe even a half or a full bushel or more per acre. Remember, we didn't have an October report. The November report was flawed. They didn't have data. They just made small revisions. So almost all of the revision is going to come in the final January report. We could see some big surprises there. And my bet would be on the soybeans being the big surprise. Here we've got rainfall in Argentina, Brazil and Argentina in the past week. This area is a little bit, most of the main production area in Brazil is great, but this area in the northeast has been relatively dry. And also remember, these rains arrive late, so the crop is late in many areas of Brazil and Argentina. In the southern area of Argentina has been dry the past week. That's a pattern that was basically established for a long time. So a lot of people expecting South American production numbers to be raised on Monday's USDA report. We'll see, but there are not all perfect places in South America either. Just like in the United States, we talked about how big our crop was going to be this year, and now we're looking at further reductions in the January report. I think that could be a pretty good bullish surprise in soybeans. The wheat market, new lows last week, rallying a bit here in the Chicago market. Minneapolis, though, still pretty lethargic and basically near the lows of the year. Interesting, the grains are languishing around in these low levels. And look at the livestock, live cattle rallying back after dropping nearly to 200 from 250, rallying back here to nearly 235, 240. And so interesting, a little strength there. And in the feeder cattle, same thing, bouncing back and actually showing a little more strength this week. Almost about a 75% retracement, almost to the 360 area recovery. So the feeder cattle have recovered quite well. And you look at some of these, excuse me, some of these other markets, gold rallying back again this week following the daring taking of Maduro, the Venezuelan president, into custody. Look at that, rallying near those old highs, just under 4,600, and silver rallying back near $80, very near those all-time highs as well. Crude oil also didn't do much here for most of the week, but then Thursday, Friday, boom, gains and actually rallying. The United States supposedly going to extract a lot of Venezuelan crude oil and sell it, but actually, maybe we should have bought more of this crude oil at this 56 level, the lows. $56 crude is relatively cheap, especially with the inflation we have. And look at what's happening in the outside markets. The Dow Jones, this is a monthly chart now. We've been looking at yearlies, and this goes all the way back to 2002, but new highs this month, new highs this past week in the Dow and the stock market S&P. So obviously we've got a market that's rallying. But maybe the measuring stick we're using to measure everything is the dollar. And maybe, the dollar actually gained last week with the taking into custody Maduro and his wife. The dollar got stronger. That's actually working against these commodities when the dollar goes stronger. But is it possible that people are anticipating with the gold and silver rallying new highs, the stock market rallying to new highs, that the dollar has shown a lot of weakness here early in the year. So here we are sitting near those lows of the dollar. Had a rally last week on the Venezuelan action in the United States, but is that going to be permanent? So we've got some some interesting things happening in the markets. New all-time highs in uh, the Dow, the stock market, the equities, and gold and silver knocking on the door of new all-time highs as well. We had cattle markets rallying to new all-time highs, and here we have the grain sitting at the lows. Maybe we'll change that, rattle things up a little bit. Market expecting uh, more stocks of corn, soy, at least soybeans and wheat, or small reductions in those stocks to be comfortable. Do we really have as good a crop as they say in soybeans? We will see USDA's revisions on Monday. I'm betting on a bullish soybean report and maybe even a slightly bearish on corn, but we could see some big surprises because we really didn't revise those crops, and the yields were relatively disappointing compared to what we expected with record-shattering yields all summer. Maybe half the country got those yields, but half the country did not. And so it'll be interesting to see what USDA assesses on Monday morning. If you have a great weekend and good marketing.